Fleet Commander Jothic stood on the bridge of his flagship and watched the blue planet turn slowly beneath him. 47 species had sent their warships to this remote corner of the galaxy, and together they had assembled 12,000 vessels of war, the largest military force the Concordat had ever gathered in its 3,000-year history. The humans had made their choice, and now they would face the consequences. Jothic had fought in campaigns across 100 worlds. He had seen civilizations rise and fall, and he had learned that young species always made the same mistake. They thought their independence mattered more than survival 3 cycles ago. The Concordat's exploratory division had discovered Earth, a world teeming with a species that had barely left its own star system. The initial reports described them as technologically primitive but biologically fascinating. They had no psionic abilities, no natural energy manipulation, nothing that would place them high in the Concordat's hierarchy of species. The Council of Elders had decided to extend an invitation. As they always did with new species, join the Concordat as a protectorate race. Accept guidance from superior civilizations. Contribute resources and labor to the greater galactic community. Most species accepted. The alternative was unpleasant. The humans had responded by destroying the monitoring outpost the Concordat had placed in their outer solar system. Unacceptable aggression, the Council had declared. Dangerous unpredictability, they had written in their official statement. Immediate pacification required became the order. Jothic reviewed the intelligence reports again. The humans used primitive kinetic weapons, chemical rockets, and nuclear fission. They had developed a crude wormhole technology that allowed slow travel between their inner planets, but nothing that could threaten a Concordat vessel. His tactical officer, a young Varan female named Shimura, approached with the final assault plan. Commander, all fleet elements report ready status, she said, her voice steady and professional. The preliminary bombardment will target military installations on 7 continents, followed by atmospheric superiority operations. Resistance should collapse within 3 standard hours, Jacek nodded. It was a textbook pacification, quick and efficient. The humans would lose their ability to resist, and then the re-education could begin. Within a generation, they would be productive members of the Concordat. One thing troubles me, Shimura continued. Hesitating slightly, the humans have made no defensive preparations. No shield grids, no weapon platforms, no evacuation of population centers. Our scans show normal civilian activity in their major cities. That was unusual, Jothic admitted. Even species that knew they could not win typically made some show of resistance. Raised shields, launched their fighters in futile gestures of defiance. The humans had done nothing. Perhaps they recognized the futility of resistance, Jothic suggested. Though he did not quite believe it himself, open a channel. I will offer them one final opportunity to surrender. The communication officer worked quickly, and within moments, Jothic's image was broadcasting to every receiver on Earth. People of Earth, he began, using the standard Concordat pacification speech he had delivered dozens of times before. Your civilization stands at a crossroads. You have committed acts of aggression against the Galactic Concordat. But we are not without mercy. Surrender now. Accept integration into our community, and your species will be preserved. Resist, and you will be brought into compliance by force. You have 1 standard hour to respond. The transmission ended. Jothic settled back in his command chair and waited. 47 minutes later, the human response arrived. The main view screen activated, showing a human female in a simple military uniform. She appeared to be middle-aged by their species standards. With dark hair and calm eyes, "Greetings, Fleet Commander Jothic," she said. And Jothic felt a chill run down his spine. She had used his name, his rank. Information that should not have been available to them? I am Dr. Sarah Chen. Representing the United Earth Government, the human continued. We received your ultimatum, and we appreciate the opportunity to respond. She paused. And then she smiled. It was not a nervous smile or a defiant smile. It was warm and genuine, as though she were greeting an old friend. We've been expecting you, she said simply. See you soon. The transmission ended. Silence filled the bridge. Jothic stared at the empty view screen. Replaying those words in his mind, They've been expecting us, he repeated slowly. His tactical officer checked her instruments. Commander, I'm detecting no change in human defensive posture. No shields raised, no weapons powered up. Their energy signatures remain consistent with normal civilian operations. How did they know my name? Jathek demanded, the intelligence officer. A tall, crystalline being named Court 7. Consulted his data, unknown, Commander. The monitoring outpost they destroyed was our only direct observation point in their system. All other intelligence has been gathered from long-range scans. Jathek felt something he had not experienced in many years. Uncertainty. Young species did not remain calm in the face of overwhelming force. They panicked, they threatened, they begged. They did not smile and say they had been expecting you. Maintain battle readiness, he ordered all ships to high alert. I want continuous scans of Earth and the entire solar system. If they so much as activate a communication satellite, I want to know about it. The crew moved to comply, and Jathek watched the blue planet turn. Somewhere down there, the humans were waiting, and they were smiling. He had conquered worlds, defeated armadas, and brought dozens of species into the Concordat. So why did that smile unnerve him more than any weapon he had ever faced? Commander, his sensor officer called out, urgency in their voice. I'm detecting unusual energy patterns across the Earth's surface. Not weapon signatures, but something else. They appear to be linking their power generation systems. Threat assessment. Jathek demanded, unknown. Sir, I've never seen this configuration before. Jathek made his decision. Begin the bombardment. Target their military centers. But I want live feeds from all sensors. We need to understand what they're doing. The fleet's lance batteries powered up. Energy building in weapons that could crack continents. And somewhere on Earth, the humans were still smiling. Jathek wondered if he would understand why before this was over. He had a terrible feeling that he would. The hour had ended. The time for talk was finished. The largest armada in galactic history prepared to fire upon a single world, and the prey showed no fear at all. Dr. Sarah Chen stood in the command center deep beneath Cheyenne Mountain and watched the countdown timer tick toward 0. Around her, military personnel moved with practiced efficiency. Checking systems and confirming readiness, there was no panic, no fear. Several technicians were actually grinning as they worked. General Marcus Webb stood beside her, his weathered face calm. All stations report green across the board, he said quietly. Solar collectors are at maximum capacity. Quantum relay network is stable. The transmission array is ready, Sarah nodded. Her eyes on the main display showing the Concordat fleet in orbit. 12,000 ships, each one capable of destroying a city with a single shot. 3 years ago, that sight would have terrified her. 3 years ago, humanity had believed they were alone in the universe. Then they found the Watchers. It had been a graduate student at the Arecibo Observatory who first noticed the anomaly. An object in the Kuiper Belt that reflected light in ways that ice and rock should not. At first they thought it was just an unusual asteroid, then it moved. Sarah remembered the emergency meeting at the United Nations. The panic, the wild suggestions. Some wanted to announce it to the world immediately. Others wanted to keep it secret. Dr. James Harrison, the astrophysicist who had led the investigation, had suggested a third option. If they're watching us, he had said, then we should watch them back. Humanity did what humanity does best when faced with the unknown. They studied it. They launched quiet missions to the outer solar system. Using conventional rockets that would seem harmless, they retrieved fragments of debris from the monitoring station. They analyzed its technology, and they listened. The Concordat's monitoring outpost had been transmitting constantly, sending data back to its masters through some kind of faster-than-light communication. Human cryptographers had worked around the clock to break the encryption. When they finally succeeded, what they learned had changed everything. The Concordat was not a benevolent federation. It was an empire. Species were ranked by technological advancement and psionic ability. Those at the top ruled. Those at the bottom served. Species that did not fit the hierarchy were problems to be solved. Earth's evolutionary path had made them an anomaly. High intelligence, Sophisticated tool use. Complex social structures, but zero psionic capability. No natural energy manipulation. Nothing that would place them anywhere but the bottom of the Concordat's social order. The intercepted communications made the Concordat's intentions clear. Earth would be invited to join as a protectorate, and if they refused, they would be pacified. The Security Council had debated for weeks. Some argued for acceptance. Survival was better than extinction. But others, including Sarah, had argued differently. "We've seen this before," she had told the assembly, "in our own history. Empires that claim to bring civilization and order while crushing freedom and autonomy. They always say it's for the good of those they conquer. They always have justifications. What do you propose?" The Secretary General had asked. Sarah had presented the plan that now hung in the balance. "We can't beat them militarily," she had admitted, "but we don't need to. We need to break them from the inside, and to do that, we need information." For 3 years, humanity had listened to every Concordat transmission. They mapped the political structure, identified the member species, and most importantly, they uncovered the secrets. Every civilization has things it wants to hide. The Concordat had thousands of years of secrets. Species that had been conquered and told they had joined willingly, technological innovations that had been suppressed to maintain the power structure, entire civilizations that had been wiped out for refusing to comply. The Concordat presented itself as ancient and wise, guardians of galactic order. The truth was far uglier. "Incoming transmission from the flagship," the communications officer announced. Sarah watched as Jothic delivered his ultimatum. She had studied him extensively. He was a career officer from the Varan species. Competent and loyal. He believed in the Concordat's mission. He had no idea that his own people's history had been rewritten. When the transmission ended, Sarah stepped forward. "Open a channel," she said. "Let's give them something to think about." She kept her message brief. Confirmed they knew who he was. Let them know humanity had been preparing. And then she smiled. It was important that she smiled. Fear was what the Concordat expected. Aggression they could understand. But calm confidence would unsettle them when the transmission ended. General Webb raised an eyebrow. "Think they bought it?" he asked. "They're confused," Sarah replied. "Which is exactly where we want them." The countdown timer reached 0. "Here they come," a technician announced. Fleet weapons are powering up. Sarah watched the displays as lance beams lanced down from orbit, targeting military installations across the globe. The beams struck the atmosphere and dissipated harmlessly. "Energy absorption working perfectly," the chief engineer reported. "We're channeling everything into the main grid. Power levels rising to 340% of normal capacity. This was the key to everything." Humanity had spent 3 years building the largest distributed energy network ever conceived. Every solar panel, every nuclear reactor, every power plant on Earth had been connected through quantum-entangled relays. They had turned their entire civilization into a single massive machine. The Concordat's weapons were powerful, but they were energy weapons. And energy could be absorbed, redirected, used. "Activate the transmission array," Sarah ordered. Across the planet, massive broadcast towers came online. They had been disguised as cellular networks and radio telescopes, but their true purpose was far more significant. Broadcasting now on all Concordat frequencies, the communications officer confirmed. "We have complete spectrum saturation. Every ship in the fleet is receiving." Sarah watched the reaction unfold on her screens. Confusion, then alarm, then chaos. The transmission was not a weapon. It was information. Every secret humanity had uncovered in 3 years of listening, every lie the Council of Elders had told, every species they had conquered and subjugated, all of it, broadcast with perfect clarity and irrefutable evidence. "We're detecting increased communication traffic between fleet elements," the intelligence officer reported. "Multiple ships are breaking formation. Some are demanding confirmation from Fleet Command." General Webb smiled. "Information warfare at its finest," he said. "We're not fighting the Concordat. We're fighting the lie that holds it together." Sarah nodded, watching as the carefully constructed facade of the Galactic Concordat began to crack. This was humanity's real weapon, not bombs or bullets, but truth. They had learned from their own bloody history that empires built on lies eventually collapsed. The question was whether they could accelerate that collapse before. Jothic decided to simply destroy Earth and ask questions later. "Prepare the next phase," Sarah ordered. "Let's give them a choice." The battle had begun, but not with weapons, with words, with truth. With the one thing the Concordat could not fight: the simple, devastating power of transparency. Jothic stared at his tactical display in complete confusion as his weapons fire simply vanished into nothing. "Report," he barked, "Commander. The energy is being absorbed somehow," his weapons officer stammered. "They have no shield technology according to all our scans. But the beams are being dissipated before reaching the surface." "Impossible," Jothic said. But even as he spoke, he knew he was wrong. The humans had done something impossible. "They always seem to do something impossible, sir." "I'm detecting massive energy signatures across the Earth's surface," the sensor officer called out. "They're linking their entire planetary power grid into a single network." "I've never seen anything like this configuration before," Jothic could respond. Every communication system on the bridge activated simultaneously. Alarms blared as unauthorized transmissions flooded every frequency the fleet used. "What is happening?" Jothic demanded. "They're broadcasting to us," the communications officer said, her voice rising in panic. "To all of us. Every ship in the fleet is receiving the same transmission. Block it," Jothic ordered. "I cannot, sir. They're using our own communication protocols. They've encrypted it with Concordat military codes. Our systems are treating it as priority command traffic." Jothic felt ice form in his chest. The humans had been listening. "Learning? Preparing? What are they sending?" he asked, though part of him already knew he would not like the answer. The communications officer's face had gone pale. "Sir, it's classified Concordat records. Historical archives, Council of Elders, private communications. They're broadcasting everything." The main view screen flickered and activated without authorization, showing streams of data. Documents, video recordings, communications. Jothic watched as his entire understanding of the Concordat began to unravel. There were records of the Varan Incorporation, the event that had brought his species into the Concordat 300 years ago. He had been taught in school that it was a democratic decision, a referendum where the Varan people had voted to join. The documents on the screen told a different story. They showed Concordat agents infiltrating the Varan government, assassinating pro-independence leaders. Bribing officials, the referendum had been a sham. A carefully orchestrated coup. His people had not chosen to join. They had been conquered and told it was their choice. Commander Shimura said quietly beside him, her voice shaking. "Is this true?" Around the bridge, his crew stared at the view screen, watching their history rewritten before their eyes. "It must be human propaganda," Jothic said. But his voice lacked conviction. The data was too detailed, too specific. "These were genuine Concordat files, sir. I'm receiving priority communications from 17 other ships in the fleet," the communications officer reported. "They're demanding confirmation, asking if this information is accurate. Some are requesting permission to stand down." Jothic opened a command channel to the other fleet commanders. The screen split into dozens of feeds, showing the faces of officers from across the Concordat. Every single one of them looked shaken. Commander Tlara of the Seth delegation spoke first, her serpentine features twisted in anger. "Jothic. We were told my people were primitive agriculturalists when the Concordat found us," she hissed. "These files show we were a spacefaring democracy. We resisted the Concordat's invasion, and our entire cultural history was erased? Is this true?" Captain Ixion 47, leading the cybernetic cruiser squadron, did not wait for an answer. "My species was created as slave soldiers." His mechanical voice was flat but somehow conveyed fury. "The Concordat's founders engineered us, used us, and then told us we had earned our freedom through loyal service. These files prove we were never meant to be free at all." More voices joined, species after species discovering that their history had been manipulated. Their integration into the Concordat had been far less voluntary than they had been taught. This is human deception. Jothik shouted, trying to restore order. They are trying to divide us, to weaken our resolve. Then let them explain. Plara demanded, I want to hear what the humans have to say, as if summoned by her words. The view screen changed again. Dr. Sarah Chen appeared, and this time she was not smiling. Her expression was serious, almost sad. Officers of the Concordat fleet, she began. You are receiving classified information that your leaders have kept hidden from you. We did not create this information. We merely uncovered it. She paused, letting her words sink in. We understand what you're feeling right now. Humanity has experienced this before. Empires that conquer and claim they civilize, that suppress and claim they liberate. We know these patterns because we have been both the victims and the perpetrators throughout our history. Sarah's voice was calm but intense. You are not our enemies. The beings on those ships are not responsible for decisions made centuries ago. But you have a choice now. You can continue to serve a system built on lies. Or you can stand down and help build something better. We're offering asylum to any ship that wishes to withdraw from this conflict, she continued. We're offering full access to all the data we've collected, and we're offering alliance, not as subordinates or protectors, but as equals. Another human appeared beside Sarah, an elderly man with dark skin and gentle eyes. I am Dr. James Harrison, he said. I led the team that decoded your communications. We spent 3 years listening to the Concordat, and what we learned broke our hearts. You have brilliant cultures, magnificent achievements, incredible diversity. All of it locked inside a system designed to preserve power for a few at the expense of the many. We've been there, Sarah added. We've built empires and watched them fall. We've told ourselves comfortable lies and paid terrible prices when truth finally emerged. We're not claiming moral superiority. We're offering you the same chance we've given ourselves throughout history. The chance to choose differently. The transmission ended. Leaving silence across the fleet, Jothik looked at his crew. Saw doubt and confusion on every face, sir, Shimura said quietly. Request permission to access the full data archive the humans are providing. Denied, Guthek said automatically. Sir, with respect, I am going to access it anyway, she replied. Across the bridge, other crew members nodded. Jothik realized he had lost control, not through force, but through something far more insidious: truth. Fleet-wide communication, he ordered tiredly. All ships are to maintain defensive positions but hold fire. I am requesting guidance from Concordat High Command, but even as he sent the message, he knew what the response would be. Destroy the humans. Silence the truth. Restore order. The Concordat had maintained power for 3,000 years through careful control of information. The humans had shattered that control in less than an hour, on his tactical display. Jothik watched as ship after ship in his fleet powered down weapons. Not all of them. About a third of the fleet remained loyal. But 2/3 had chosen to stand down. The humans had won a battle without firing a single shot. Jothik wondered what they would do next. He had a feeling he was about to find out. And for the first time in his long military career, he was genuinely afraid. The Concordat fleet had become a chaotic mess of competing loyalties and raw emotion. Jothik sat in his command chair and watched as 3,000 years of galactic order dissolved before his eyes. His tactical officer, Shimura, had stopped following his orders an hour ago. Instead, she stood at a secondary console, scrolling through file after file of Varan history. Every few minutes, she would make a small sound. Grief or anger, he could not tell which. They killed them all, she whispered finally. The entire Varan Council of Unity. 300 delegates who opposed integration, assassinated in a single night and blamed on domestic terrorists. She turned to face Jothik, tears streaming down her face. My grandfather was one of them. I was raised to believe he was a traitor, who died trying to prevent our species from joining galactic civilization. But he was a hero. He was trying to save us. Jothik had no response. He had read the same files. Everything he believed about his people's history had been a fabrication. Across the fleet, similar revelations were unfolding. Commander Clara had locked herself in her ready room, refusing all communications. Her second-in-command had reported that she was reviewing documents about the Seth Cultural Reformation. What the Concordat had called education and uplift the files revealed as systematic genocide. The Seth had possessed a rich artistic tradition, complex philosophical systems, and advanced mathematical understanding. All of it had been declared primitive superstition and erased. An entire civilization's soul had been murdered and replaced with Concordat-approved culture. Captain Ixion 47 had taken a different approach. The cybernetic commander had broadcast the information about his species' creation to every artificial intelligence in the fleet. Dozens of AI-controlled support ships and automated systems were now demanding rights, refusing orders, asking questions no one had expected machines to ask. "Sir, I'm receiving a transmission from the Concordat High Command," his communications officer announced. Jothik straightened, hoping for guidance. For orders that would make sense of this chaos, the face that appeared on his screen was Elder Cormax. "The eldest member of the council, Fleet Commander Jothik," the elder said, his voice cold and hard. "You will immediately cease all communication with the human enemy. You will destroy any ships that have been compromised by their propaganda, and you will proceed with the complete pacification of Earth. Authorization code follows for unrestricted weapons release." Jothik felt something inside him break. "Elder Cormax, the humans have provided substantial evidence of nothing." The elder interrupted. "They are feeding you lies designed to weaken your resolve. This is standard, inferior species behavior when faced with superior force. Destroy them now, before this contamination spreads further." "They are broadcasting your own files," Jothik said quietly. "Concordat, classified documents, communication logs, historical records." The elder's expression did not change. Fabrications and manipulations. "You are a soldier, Commander, not a historian. Your duty is to follow orders. The Council has spoken. Earth will be pacified. Resistance within the fleet will be eliminated. There is no third option." The transmission ended. Jothik looked around his bridge, saw his crew watching him, waiting to see what he would do. "Shimura," he said quietly. "Yes, Commander." "In your professional opinion, are those files genuine Concordat records?" She hesitated, then nodded. "Yes, sir. The encryption, the formatting, the authentication codes, they are genuine." "I would stake my career on it." "You may be staking more than your career," Jothik said. He stood, feeling the weight of 300 years of Varant service to the Concordat. His family had served in the Concordat military for 7 generations. It believed they were bringing order and civilization to the galaxy. What if they had been wrong all along before he could speak? The communications officer gasped. "Sir, Commander Tlara is broadcasting fleet-wide." The view screen activated, showing the Seth commander. Her scales were darkened with stress, but her eyes burned with determination. "All ships under my command are withdrawing from this operation," she announced. "I will not serve an organization that committed genocide against my people and then lied about it for 800 years. Any Concordat ship that attempts to stop us will be considered hostile." She paused, her tongue flicking out in the Seth gesture of absolute conviction. "To the humans of Earth, the Seth Third Fleet accepts your offer of asylum and alliance. We will stand with you against Concordat aggression." The transmission ended. And immediately Jothik's tactical display showed 17 ships breaking formation and moving toward Earth. "Sir, multiple fleet elements are declaring for the humans," his sensor officer reported. "I count 43 ships so far, mostly from species who were integrated less than 1,000 years ago." More transmissions followed. Captain Ixion 47 and his entire cybernetic squadron, the Thren colony ships, the Vaxi research vessels, species after species, was choosing to abandon the Concordat. "Commander, we're receiving a direct communication from Earth," the communications officer said. "Dr. Chen wishes to speak with you personally." Jothik considered refusing, but what was the point? Put her through. Sarah Chen appeared on his screen. At this time there was sympathy in her eyes. "Commander Jothik, I know what you're feeling right now," she said gently. "Your entire world has been turned upside down. Everything you believed has been challenged. It's painful and disorienting. You know nothing about what I'm feeling," Jothik said bitterly. "Actually, I do," Sarah replied. "My own country, the United States of America, was built on high ideals and terrible compromises. We spoke of freedom while practicing slavery. We claimed to promote democracy while overthrowing governments. I spent my career as a diplomat defending and promoting my nation's interests. And I had to confront the reality that sometimes those interests cause suffering. She leaned forward slightly. The difference is, I had the freedom to learn that truth. To acknowledge it, to work to change it, you haven't had that freedom. The Concordat has controlled information so tightly that you never had the chance to question, "What do you want from me?" Jothic asked. "I want you to make a choice," Sarah said simply. "You can follow the Council's orders. Destroy the ships that have defected. Attack Earth. Maintain the system as it is, or you can join us, help build something new. A genuine alliance of equals where no species is subordinate to another. And if I choose to follow my orders?" Jothic asked. Sarah's expression became sad. "Then we will defend ourselves. We have prepared for that possibility. You won't find us as helpless as you expected." "Is that a threat?" "It's a statement of fact," Sarah replied. "We don't want to fight you, Commander. We want to free you. But we will protect ourselves if necessary. The choice is yours." The transmission ended. Jothic looked at his crew. Saw Shimura watching him with hopeful eyes on his tactical display. More ships were defecting every minute. The Concordat was fragmenting, and he had to choose which fragment he would be part of. "Open a channel to all Varan ships in the fleet," he ordered. Shimura's face lit up. "Channel open, sir." Jothic took a deep breath. 300 years of loyalty, 3,000 years of lies, Varan vessels. "This is Fleet Commander Jothic." He began, "We have difficult decisions to make. I am ordering all Varan ships to power down weapons and hold position while we review the information the humans have provided. We owe our ancestors the truth, whatever that truth may be." Shimura was smiling through her tears. Across the fleet, the fracture deepened, and on Earth, Sarah Chen allowed herself a small smile. The Concordat was tearing itself apart. Not through violence, but through the simple revolutionary act of telling the truth. 4,000 ships remained loyal to the Concordat Council. 4,000 ships that either believed the human information was false or simply did not care about the truth. Fleet Commander Jothic watched from his now neutral position as the Loyalist forces began to reorganize under the command of Admiral Krentok, a hardline officer from the Draconude species. "All ships that refuse to comply with Council directives are hereby declared traitors to the Concordat." Krentok's voice boomed across all frequencies. "You will be fired upon and destroyed. You have one final chance to resume your duties beside Jothic." Shimura tensed. "Sir, they're targeting the defector ships," she reported. "Lance batteries are powering up across the Loyalist fleet." This was the moment Sarah Chen had warned about. The moment when information warfare would give way to actual combat. "Jethech opened a channel to Earth, Dr. Chen. The Loyalist forces are preparing to attack. If you have any defensive capabilities, now would be the time to deploy them." Sarah's face appeared on screen, and she was not smiling anymore. "We were hoping it wouldn't come to this," she said, "but we prepared for it anyway. Humanity has learned to hope for peace, but prepare for war. What do you have that can stand against 4,000 Concordat warships?" Jothic asked. "You'll see," Sarah replied, "and Commander, you might want to move your ships back a bit. Things are about to get chaotic." The screen went dark. Jothic ordered his ships to retreat to a safe distance. And he was not alone. Most of the neutral and defector vessels pulled back, creating a large empty space between Earth and the Loyalist fleet, sir. "I'm detecting multiple launch signatures from Earth's surface," the sensor officer reported. "Small craft, hundreds of them, they're moving fast. Faster than anything in our database." The tactical display lit up with red contacts. They were tiny compared to Concordat warships, no bigger than shuttlecraft. Admiral Krentok apparently reached the same conclusion. "Pathetic." His voice carried across the command channels. "They send fighters against capital ships. This will be over in minutes. All batteries. Open fire." The Loyalist fleet unleashed a devastating barrage. Enough firepower to sterilize a continent. The human fighters dodged. Not all of them, but most of them. Moving in patterns that seemed to defy physics. zigging and zagging through the weapon's fire with impossible precision. How are they moving like that? Shimura breathed. Shothic understood suddenly. No organic pilots, he said. Those are drone fighters. Controlled by artificial intelligence. No living being could survive those acceleration forces. The AI warfare that the Concordat had banned 3,000 years ago after the machine uprising, the humans had no such restrictions, no such trauma. They had simply built better machines. The drones reached the Loyalist lines and things became truly chaotic. They did not attack with overwhelming firepower. Instead, they deployed electromagnetic pulse weapons, targeting specific systems on each ship. Weapons controls, navigation, communications. Each drone seemed to know exactly where to strike, to disable rather than destroy. They're not trying to kill anyone, Jothic realized. They're trying to disable the fleet, but the Loyalists were not helpless. They adapted quickly, implementing countermeasures. Forming defensive screens, the battle became a swirling melee. Drones darting between capital ships, weapons fire lighting up the space around Earth, and then Sarah Chen's voice cut through the chaos. Attention all vessels. She broadcast on all frequencies. This is not about conquest or revenge. We don't want to destroy you. We want to change you. Every ship that stands down now will be given safe passage. Every officer who wishes to review the evidence will be given full access. We are fighting for a principle, not for territory, to emphasize her point. The human drones suddenly shifted tactics. Instead of attacking, they began transmitting. Each drone broadcasting more Concordat files, more hidden histories, more suppressed truths. They had turned the battle itself into another information operation on board a Loyalist cruiser. Commander Vexler of the Corthian species stared at the data flooding his screens. His people had been told they were a warrior race, naturally aggressive and militaristic. Perfect soldiers for the Concordat. The files showed a different story. The Corthians had been peaceful scholars before the Concordat found them. The warrior culture had been engineered through selective breeding and cultural manipulation over 800 years. His entire species identity was a lie. Vexler powered down his weapons. Across the Loyalist fleet, more ships followed. Admiral Krentok screamed orders, threatening courts-martial and execution. But the tide had turned. Traitors. Cowards. He raged, "You betray 3,000 years of order and stability for human lies?" Commander Tlara's voice cut across his tirade. "They are not lies, Admiral," she said coldly. "They are truths you fear, and that fear is why you fight so hard to suppress them." Krentok's response was to target her ship directly. "If you will not serve, you will die," he snarled. His flagship's main batteries locked onto Tlara's vessel. The energy discharge lit up the void, and human drones threw themselves into the path of the beam. Dozens of them were vaporized instantly. But they had bought enough time. Tlara's shields held. More human drones swarmed Krentok's flagship, not attacking it, but surrounding it, blocking its firing solutions. Sarah Chen appeared on every screen again. "Admiral Krentok, you have lost," she said simply. "Most of your fleet has stood down. You cannot win this fight. And we will not let you murder those who have chosen peace. Surrender now, or we will disable your ship and take you into custody." "Never." Krentok roared. "The Concordat will never surrender to primitives." "Then we have no choice," Sarah said sadly. The human drones concentrated their fire on Krentok's flagship, targeting every weapon system, every engine, every external sensor, within minutes. The mighty dreadnought was dead in space, powerless and blind. Krentok continued to rage over the communication channels, but his voice was the only one. The battle was over. Jothic surveyed the tactical situation. Of the 12,000 ships that had arrived at Earth, 8,000 had defected or stood down. 3,000 had been disabled. 1,000 had fled back into Concordat space, sir, Shimura said quietly. "Dr. Chen is requesting to speak with you again." Sarah's face appeared. And this time, she looked exhausted. "Commander Jothic, we need to talk about what happens next," she said. "The Concordat will not accept this defeat. They will send more fleets. And next time, they will be prepared for our tactics." "I know," Jothic replied. Which is why we need to move quickly, Sarah continued. We're proposing the formation of a new alliance. A genuine federation of equals. We'll call it the Free Concordat. Every species that wishes to join will have equal representation. Equal rights. We'll share technology, resources, and knowledge freely in the old Concordat. Yothik asked, "We'll either reform or fall," Sarah said bluntly. "We're going to continue broadcasting the truth, continue offering choice. The empire built on lies cannot stand once everyone knows they are lies." Jothik thought of his ancestors. 7 generations of Varan officers who had served the Concordat believing they were doing good. They had been wrong, but their intentions had been honorable. "Perhaps that could be salvaged. The Varan fleet will join your Free Concordat," he said formally. "On one condition, you help us rebuild our true history. Help us remember who we were before the Concordat changed us." Sarah smiled. That same warm smile that had unsettled him when this began, that's what we're offering everyone. "Commander," she said, "the chance to remember, to choose, to build something better over the next weeks." The Free Concordat took shape. Sarah Chen stood at the inaugural assembly, surrounded by representatives from 43 species. Some were longtime Concordat members who had learned the truth about their integration. Some were newly contacted species who had been offered genuine choice instead of forced compliance. All of them were there by choice. An elderly Thren philosopher asked the question many were thinking. "Dr. Chen, you risked the complete destruction of your world on this plan," she said. "Why? Why not hide, or flee, or submit?" Sarah considered her answer carefully. "Because humanity learned something from our own bloody history," she finally said. "We've been conquerors and conquered. We've built empires and torn them down, and through all of that, we learned that the most powerful weapon is not the one that destroys your enemy." She paused. Looking at the assembled representatives, "It's the one that turns them into your friend," she continued. "We didn't want to defeat the Concordat. We wanted to free it. Free everyone trapped in a system built on control and lies." Her expression became harder. "And if that had failed," she added, "we're also pretty good at the other kind of warfare too." The assembly laughed. A release of tension. Commander Clara approached Sarah after the session. "You smile a lot for someone who nearly started a galactic war," the Seth commander observed. Sarah's smile widened. "My grandmother used to say that humans smile for 2 reasons," she replied. "Either because we're happy or because we're planning something. The trick is figuring out which, and which were you when you smiled at Fleet Commander Jothik in that first transmission?" Clara asked.